I'm going to be talking to Dr. Tom Green of the David Suzuki Foundation about a new study, Shifting Power, Zero Emissions Electricity Across Canada by 2035. So welcome to the interview, Tom.
Great to be here, Markham. Thanks for inviting us.
Well, happy to do it. Maybe let's start with an overview of your study, please.
Sure. So, well, quite a number of years ago, the David Suzuki Foundation did a study called the Trottier Energy Futures Project, looking at renewable energy out to the year 2050, or looking at how Canada could meet its energy needs out to the year 2050. And we wanted to do a study which was about getting the grid to zero emissions by 2035, and then keeping it zero emissions all the way out to 2050 as the economy, as more and more of the economy electrified, as people switched from gas cars to EVs and heat pumps instead of furnaces, those kind of things. So we collaborated with the team at University of Victoria and gave them the parameters, and then they were developing the model and then got the results back, and we were pleased with them. So put them together in our report, Shifting Power, that you mentioned.
Now, these are pathways to zero emissions for each province?
Yeah, all across Canada. Now, we don't look north of 60. So unfortunately, Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut are out of the study just because they're not connected to the national grid.
Well, let's talk about a few of the provinces then, because you and I both live in British Columbia, and I'm fascinated here because, of course, BC has got a wonderful 20th century electricity system, 97% emissions free, reliable, inexpensive. But if it needs two to three times more electricity by 2050, and it can't build another 32 dams to double the number that it has already, what does BC do?
Yeah, so what we allowed for in the study is building more interprovincial transmission so that you can share power back and forth between Alberta and BC. And so that's very helpful in this scenario. We see BC's large hydroelectric facilities being used as battery backup for Alberta. And then Alberta built a lot of wind farms. So at times BC is drawing on a lot of wind from Alberta in our scenario. And other times BC is backstopping the Alberta grid, when there's a period of low wind and solar production in Alberta. But we also build a fair bit of wind in each province across Canada, really. We see a lot of wind being built, and then towards the end of the scenario, just because of the economics, the solar coming in cheaper, then we will see more solar on the grid in BC as well.
How much?
It becomes in the southeast corner of the province where there's just more sunny hours in the year.
Gotcha. How much more wind and solar can be built in British Columbia?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question that, one would have to, our study is a fairly high conceptual study. And now there's going to be follow-on work that the team that we collaborated with at University of Victoria did to dig down a bit more into the details. So the way our scenario worked, Canada is divided up into 2,280 grid cells, and each grid cell has data for the wind and solar capacity. And so the model builds on that basis, and there's a limit to how much wind and solar it can build. Now, it's a bit of a coarse model because it's not able to take into account, site-specific issues like, are there other constraints on that land use that mean that you have to downgrade how much wind or solar would be able to be built? But there's one other thing about our study is we don't include wind energy, and in BC's case, that could end up being fairly significant to the future. Or sorry, we don't include offshore wind, and that could end up being quite considerable in BC's case. Now, why do we not include it? It was just simply that the modeling suite that was available at UVic at the time didn't have that capability yet to look at wind offshore in a sophisticated enough manner that we could include it.
Gotcha. So we know that Alberta and Saskatchewan have the best wind and solar resources in Canada. There's been a lot of talk about using, having a Western electricity market with BC and Manitoba bookending the two wind and solar provinces. And doing exactly what you said, interties, East-West trade, all of that. So does that, have I basically summed up the model's approach to Western Canada?
That's exactly it. I mean, what this demonstrates, like a number of other studies have demonstrated, is there's a real benefit to collaborating between provinces. You just get that benefit of being able to share as a weather system moves across, or if a region has got poor solar production for a while just because of the weather, and the neighboring province is sunny at that time, you get that benefit. So, and you get the benefit of BC and Manitoba having their large hydroelectric dams, which, giant batteries. So other studies have shown this. Ours has shown it too. The real challenge is going to be going from what the model wants to build as the lowest cost option, because the model we use, the copper capacity expansion model, it looks for the lowest cost solution. And getting that translated into the political will and collaboration between provinces and utilities to actually take that approach.
Right. There's not a lot of political will at the moment for provinces and utilities to talk about East-West trade. So let's talk about another set of provinces that don't like to talk about East-West trade and electricity, and that's Ontario and Quebec. What pathway are you talking about there? It almost sounds like it would be a kind of a Manitoba, Saskatchewan, or Alberta, BC relationship.
Yeah, indeed. The model really wants to build a lot of transmission between Quebec and Ontario. And again, you've got those, that fantastic hydroelectric reservoir network in Quebec that can backstop the Ontario grid. And you got a lot of possibilities for wind and solar production in Ontario. So if you build up that capacity, Quebec can avoid spilling water at times when Ontario has excess capacity. So this kind of collaboration across provinces, we see that happening, and again in the Atlantic region as well.
So it sounds like East-West trade is a big part of the solution to solving the conundrum of how do we double or triple our power generation to electrify our economy by 2050 and do it and keep it low cost, reliable, and clean. Mm-hmm. The problem is that seems like such a rational solution, and I can't think of a premier, not John Horgan in BC, not Jason Kenney in Alberta, not Doug Ford in Ontario. None of the premiers want to talk about it.
And I think you're right. It's up to civil society, and also I think as more and more evidence comes out, just the business case for doing this. The business case, the climate case, ratepayer interests, like it's such a clear case that this is where we should be moving. And the federal government, to its credit, has been setting up, supporting various processes to move this along, such as the REXI studies, which also looked at this same question of regional collaboration between Western provinces and in the Atlantic as well. There's a similar study as well done with Quebec and New England states. So all the evidence is pointing towards this, and we just need to. One of the things we point to in our study is just how balkanized the power grids are in Canada, and if we're going to address climate and have an electrified economy and get all the energy efficiency gains with that, all the climate benefits, we need to start thinking differently and change all the incentives that, say, utilities have, change the direction that utility commissions have to enable these kind of things.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I mean, the 21st century economy is going to be built on clean electricity and low carbon fuels like hydrogen and sustainable jet fuel and that sort of thing, with a little bit of hydrocarbons and I suppose some coal, unfortunately, lurking around. But nevertheless, it's clear that that if we don't have a vibrant, modern, efficient power grid, national power grid, to serve as the foundation of this new 21st century economy, there are going to be serious economic costs, serious economic penalties that Canada is going to suffer because it won't be able to compete. Well, look at Ontario. It lost a $2.5 million LG Chem battery plant in Windsor because it couldn't provide, the local power system couldn't provide enough reliable electricity for the company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I would agree with you there. And one thing we had initially hoped to do with this study is to do some more sensitivity analysis. The model does allow for isolating the different grids and then running it again and seeing, how much more do you have to build, or what options would you have to have. So it would have been great to include more sensitivity analysis. We know from iterating the model. One thing I should have mentioned is that partly this was a process of building modeling capacity in Canada. So the Trottier Family Foundation very generously supported us and the modeling team at University of Victoria, led by Dr. Madeleine McPherson, who's been on your show, I believe. It was about improving those models and whatnot, training up some of the graduate students who helped us in this process. So those models, and now we are going to have the energy modeling hub, which is going to allow much more collaboration between modelers and attention to open source modeling. So there's transparency. So we'll be able to do more of this scenario analysis. And I think one of the things we should look at is, just how much do costs go up if you insist that each province has got to be its own domain. I mean, the strange thing about it is that in Canada, we're very willing to build north-south transmission, but there's just this issue of east-west. It's almost like we need to do north-south, send it to the US, have them send it back up again, and we can get around it that way.
Well, I want to talk about the modeling issue for a minute, because this is something over the last 6 months or so that's become, well, no more than that, actually. It's become painfully obvious that Canada doesn't model nearly as much as it should. And my observations come out of interviewing American modelers. And you look at the big American government labs, like the National Renewable Energy Lab. They model and model and model and model. And then that becomes the basis for utility decisions, for government policy at both the state and at the federal level. And when you take a look north at the paucity of modeling, this is maybe one of the reasons why we're behind in talking about this more east-west trade and this more rational electricity system, but also why politicians haven't felt the heat yet, is because we haven't modeled things enough to understand them, understand the consequences, understand what needs to be done, understand the different pathways. And it's only in the last couple of years, you just saw the Climate Institute come out with the big switch report, and that was a modeling exercise, and some of a couple of other, think tanks have done that. So this is a long rambling way of saying, Tom, that it sounds like your study makes an important contribution to this, and we're looking forward to some of the additional modeling that you're planning to do in the near future.
Well, we're probably going to take a back seat on the modeling side of things and encourage others to go ahead and do that. Like, this is our contribution, was that collaboration and helping kind of ground truth this with the modeling team at UVic by giving them our feedback on, making sure that the modeling had the real policy relevance that we were looking for. And it was a bit of a firewall between us too, right? Because we don't get to go in and change the modeling parameters so that we get the kind of outputs we want. But like, just to give a bit of an optimistic side of things, like between when we started this project, bit more than 3 years ago, and now, I just feel like the capacity to do good modeling in Canada has really improved. The recognition at the federal government that this needs to happen has improved. Unfortunately, I think we still have some politicians who don't understand the relevance of modeling or how it can help you avoid going down pathways that are just not going to be productive. You know, I think you could invest a whole bunch of money in these partial solutions, but because we've got to get to zero emissions, we have to avoid these false summits that end up being more expensive, or a steeper climb to the top at the end, because you put in place a technology that's really not taking you all the way. So I'm optimistic that modeling is improving. Obviously, we have a lot of catching up to do from the US, but Dr. Madeleine McPherson came from NREL, so we are improving that in Canada.
Well, Tom, thank you very much for this. Really appreciate your insights.
Great to talk with you, Mark. And thanks for the invitation again.